Okay. Okay, alright. Let's fucking go. Okay, let's go to make some tweets and we'll get going. Okay. Hey, so Simon May, glad to have you here. The real main event of the people is Pennington versus Peña, not that bullshit. Pereira versus Rountree. You're right about that. I'm sharing a little bit, and I think we'll begin. Oh yeah, here. You go over here. I'm running late as always, so I'm making some little adjustments here. But we'll be good. We'll be good to go. Let's see what it's up. I'll be joining the chat soon. I'm just sharing some stuff. Okay, I'll check on the chat right now. Is Juliana Peña just an awful female version of Dricus? I mean, at least Dricus is dangerous on the feet, right? I feel like she's more of like an awful version of like Merab, I guess. Antonio Isidora, aguante Copiapó. Yes, indeed, aguante Copiapó. The most true statement I have read in the chat in my life, to be honest. We'll wait a little bit to have a little bit of people, and we'll get going with the preview. Today I'm drinking this energy drink from here, Chile. It's called Chem Extreme. They sell these big bottles of it. I don't think that's very safe, but that's what we're drinking today. but you can get some ASMR action. Maybe this card, I've been defending most of the cards of the year. I've been saying, oh, the matchmaking is very good. There's a lot of action fights. Man, this is not the case. This one isn't all that great, to be honest. Oh my god. But we'll see, we'll see. I think you should also come over here, actually. Yeah, I need to have this here. So we'll be we'll wait a little bit. I'll check on my phone. Hey Evan Lee, hello. Am I? Do you hear me too low? I try to fix that. Let me get. Uh, hello, 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 hello. Um, hello. Is this better? Like, am I louder now? Okay, I put it on the maximum. I don't know what's happening with my. I don't know what's going on with my microphone, to be honest. I, I've realized that the audio on my podcast has been like kind of lower than usual as well. So I don't know what's going on with my output. But I try to. I need to get a better microphone eventually, but yeah, things cost money. Anyway, we have a little bit of people here, so I guess I'll do the intro. I'll set up my DAW to record the recorded version. Hey Dan Tom, what's up, my man? Happy to have you here. Okay, maybe I was like too too far from my microphone. I don't know, but if I sound fine now, so yeah, we'll get into the formalities. I catch up with the chat, and you know the format how it goes. Usually I break down from the very first prelim to the main event. I'll make a little profile for both fighters. I'll make my breakdown, my analysis, and then we can talk about in between. The parts where I do the breakdowns will be recorded for the recorded version. So that's where I'm reading my notes. So if I don't catch up with the chat immediately, that's the reason, because I'm reading my notes. But yeah, that's it. Let's get going. I'll do the intro and all that stuff, and we'll see. Okay. Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Peña from the Fight Site, and this is the Fall Preview Podcast. This is UFC 307, Pereira versus Rountree. So once again, the UFC is putting Alex Pereira to save an event that is like kind of lackluster. I mean, this one is like actually lackluster, and you know I am the defender of the pay-per-views. Usually, not that I like the UFC as a company, but I feel like the product has been solid, especially on the matchmaking side. And the matchmaking here is interesting, but I don't have much faith on the fights being actually good this time. But we'll get into that. So the main event obviously involves a light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira facing off against Khalil Rountree. So we have a striker versus striker affair here, right? Which is kind of interesting because we have maybe another contender in this division that is more deserving and who can actually wrestle. But we'll get into that when we get into the main event. We have a 12 fight card, and this is going on in, is this Salt Lake City? Uh, I check my I'll check here because I'm a terrible host and I have no idea about this. But but yeah, this is going on in Salt Lake City, so this is like a decent altitude. So we might expect some fighters to get tired during these fights. So yeah, 12 fights. Why don't we get into the first one? Okay, we have the intro out of the way. Let me get here. What's the first fight of the night? Because I started doing the research so early that they have changed the order of the fights like so many times. Al Guapo says let's go, but he retracted that. but hello, my guy. Happy to have you here. We're about to talk about the first fight of the night. This one is Tim Means versus Kurt McGhee. Okay. The opener of the night is a fight between veterans. We have teams, the Dirty Means against Kurt McGhee. Let's begin with Means. A Southpaw veteran at 40 years old, Tim Means is clearly past his best, but still remains a solid and well-rounded fighter. Along Southpaw, Tim Means like to box from the hand fight at range with a sharp straight left and a solid right hook, mixing in leg kicks and snap kicks to the body as he forces fighters to move around. He attacks the body with his kicks and a straight right constantly, and he can find hooks to the body on the counter as well. Means can slip punches, but he mostly hides behind his lead shoulder, backing up with a bladed stance and his rear hand high. If he feels opponents are looking to close the distance he establishes, Means is quick to level change to grab clinches. Inside the clinch, he remains a force, as he not only is a solid dirty puncher, but attacks both levels with his knees, elbows, and how he mixes his weapons inside make him very dangerous. Willing to wrestle even more now than when he was young, probably because of his experience as a wrestling coach, Means is not afraid to grind takedown attempts against the fence, but he can forget his transition strikes at times when getting focused on getting the fight to the mat. From top position, Means is dangerous with ground and pound, not neglecting his bodywork, attacking with straight punches from above and knees to torturing opponents, and his front headlock chokes are a present threat with his long arms. Means can have trouble nowadays when he cannot use the clinch as a safety blanket, and the hit his reactions has taken make him vulnerable to same-time counters and getting bumped against the fence. That being said, his smart attrition game and good eye for openings mean the Dirty Bird is still a good fighter who will take everything that's given to him. Opposite to him, we have Kurt McGhee, a well-rounded pace-based fighter. The veteran is the definition of a jack of all trades. McGhee is competent at any place that fight goes. Amid a potato strikers at range, McGhee will throw 1-2s, moving around, looking to counter with his left hook, and finding spots for tapping leg kicks and a left body kick. His right to the body is one of his best weapons, and he can set it up behind a double jab upstairs. McGhee is mobile, and he likes to maintain an active output without committing to power shots all the time. Defensively, he looks to parry jabs and has a preference for deep into his right, and is usually responsible with his high guard. Inside the clinch, McGhee is a grinder, not afraid to drive people to the fence and just chip away with small punches and knees and changing levels to look for takedowns. A solid wrestler, McGhee can shoot from open space, having solid double leg and single legs, and can always climb up to the body lock and drive people to the fence. McGhee will grind takedowns but won't sell out on bad attempts, putting himself on bad spots. From top position, he has good posture and keeps active with respectable ground and pound and good submission defense, having never been submitted in 34 fights, including 22 in the UFC. If opponents scramble, he will wrestle to maintain control but won't risk bad positions, rather settling for transitional strikes. Once very durable, McGhee has been in the wrong end of knockouts lately, and it's clear his defensive reactions have taken a hit, but his cardio and resolve remain stellar, even if his ability to generate big moments isn't there. McGhee will take over fight with his transition game if his opponent tires or breaks. A showdown between longtime veterans. McGhee has been in the UFC since winning the Ultimate Fighter in 2010, having fought 22 times for the company, while the even more experienced Means made his debut in 2012, and this will be his 30th Octagon appearance. Both guys are clearly past it, but have remained well put together fighters with veteran savvy. McGhee is the more consistent of the two, while Means is the more dynamic and dangerous. Cardio has been an issue in the past for Means, but it also has been a weapon. In the case of McGhee, it was always his best attribute, and it was his saving grace in his last UFC win. All in all, I feel like this is a bad matchup for McGhee. Means is the more damaging fighter, both at range and on the inside. His attrition work to the body is likely to equalize any cardio disparity, and his takedown defense should be on point. This, coupled with McGhee's lack of experience against high-level southpaws and his tendency to dip to the right side, I think we have the ingredients for a Dirty Bird finish. Team Means gets the knockout on round 2. That's the pick. Okay, let's catch up. Oh, we have JDK, my dude. Let's go. How are you doing? We just broke down Corey McGhee versus Team Means. For anyone that is joining, and that one is like, I mean, I'm always happy to see some Team Means action. But man, if Corey McGhee wins this one, it's going to be a rough watch, you know? Like I've never been a big fan of Corey McGhee's but now, especially now that he's old, he like depends on winning like the lamest fight ever. But we gotta admit, like, Corey McGhee is kind of a pioneer of the style that is in vogue right now, like the Maravs, the Belals of the world. Like Corey McGhee was the guy walking so these guys could run. And with run, I mean like push you to the fence and land a few shots there while being very active. Dirty Bird Thrillers, stay up for sure. I love the Dirty Bird, man. He's so fucking cool. That fight I was rewatching in preparation for this. His fight against Fialio. Fantastic finish, man. That head kick that wrapped over around the high guard, and then he fucking murders him against the fence. So fucking cool. Anyway, I'll check some stuff real quick. I'll share again, I guess. Oh no, this is not it. Paste a quick link here. Dolidze studied his style of Corey McGhee. Man, Dolidze is a weird fighter, man. It's that fight against Holland. It's so weird, but we'll get into that, I guess. Oh, where's the link here? Okay. Oh, that fight between Tim Means and Matt Brown, that shit was gosh, that was so good. That fight was so good, man. Okay, let's get right into the second fight. Okay, we have another old man and some guy that is not old but looks like kind of old, right? Okay. Our second fight of the night is a light heavyweight bout between St-Preux and Ryan Spann. Let's begin with OSP. Once an athletic dynamo, OSP is now a 41-year-old, 44 fight veteran who has lost a step physically but has turned into an awkward but crafty veteran. And naturally, a southpaw, OSP has become a comfortable switch hitter over time, taking more of a volume approach lately. He uses his long frame to poke at distance with front snap kicks and jabs, standing heavy on his front foot to move his head, put combos together, and look for counters. His mechanics have always been weird with loopy punches and dragging his rear foot on attacks, but his ability to maintain stance and reposition with pivots and sidestep have improved with age. Historically a big hitter, his new volume-based approach has meant he puts a little less into his strikes, but allow him to go the distance, and he still is capable of hurting opponents fighting clean shots with tricks and setups. While hittable, OSP has been hard to hurt. His reactions are past their prime, but OSP makes sure to move his head and feet during exchanges, and he remains calm when he gets into trouble. An opportunistic grappler, OSP isn't a great offensive wrestler, but he can catch kicks and convert, and his size and strength allow him to take lesser wrestlers against the cage. His takedown defense has been solid for similar reasons, and despite being his age, he remains an above average athlete and one of the biggest dudes in the division. OSP grappling is mostly known for his bone flu choke that he uses to counter guillotine attempts to his shots, but he also has ingenious setups for it from side control. His cardio is decent, and while he can and has been hurt often into his career, late into his career, his durability is not terrible for someone with his age and mileage. And against him we have Ryan Spann, a big and athletic all-rounder. Spann is competent in all areas of MMA while not really having much of depth to any of them. But his whole game is complemented by his size, strength, and speed that gives him a lot of margins to operate with a well-rounded but shallow game. At range, Spann prefers operating in a neutral space, using his long jab and front snap and push kicks to the body, looking for spots to leap into a left hook or set up his quick 1-2, which is probably his best weapon, as his right hand is straight, long, and quick when he steps into range. Spann can slip single shots effectively at range, but he can be vulnerable to leg kicks when he steps heavy on his lead foot to do so. His defense in the pocket is suspect, as he tends to keep his chin high and can fail to see shots coming, but opponents need to be wary of his left hook. Combinations and feints can expose his defense. While not a nuanced wrestler, Spann does have a decent arsenal of takedowns, and he can shoot effectively well out in the open, especially after slipping a punch. Trips from the body lock and double leg takedowns are his go-tos. A solid grappler and a surprisingly agile scrambler for his size, Spann is heavy from top position, has good ground and pound, and is the owner of a solid guillotine, and is a more than capable back taker. Other than being stuck at faces that can expose his lack of depth, Spann is also a bit of a head case, being inconsistent performance to performance and losing grip of fights when he's winning. But despite his flaws, his attributes and well-roundedness always make him dangerous. This is a fight between two big and well-rounded athletes. While Spann has a more traditional game and better mechanics overall, OSP brings more craft to each phase given to him by experience. Spann is probably the quicker fighter, but OSP, even at 41, remains a solid athlete for the division. Spann's best shot at winning here is landing something big early, and his quick 1-2 is the kind of shot that can surprise a fighter like OSP, specifically if he times him moving his head. That said, if the fight goes long, I expect OSP better depth and poise to give him the edge here, with his bag of tricks and comfort driving him to a win. The pick is OSP by decision. Let's check in with the chat. Okay, we don't have any new comments, but yeah, this fight is kind of weird. It will be interesting to see. Supposedly, according to the tale of the tape here in Tapology, Spann is like 2 inches taller than OSP. I would be surprised to see if that's true. Spann is very big, though, man. He maybe good move to heavyweight, just like Kennedy and Seshuku did. Maybe that would be like the right move for him. I don't know, man. OSP looked pretty decent in his last fight against. OSP looked pretty decent against Seshuku. Actually, I thought that he put on a very good like veteran performance, especially for someone that was like so reliant on being like the big athlete when he was a young fighter. Makes you wonder what could have been if OSP went to like a good camp earlier in his career, because he was always fighting out of a very small camp where he was like clearly the best athlete over there. But yeah, what's the next one? Esparza versus Pennington. Okay. Where do I have that? Here. Have you ever listened to OSP's corner in between rounds? Absolute clown show every time. I think I have some few memories, but why is it like clown show? Like what kind of like there's a lot of like there's a lot of types of like clown MMA cornering. Like some guys just say some wild shit. Some guys are like, oh, you should look for the spinning kick, and that's the whole advice in between rounds. I like that subgenre of cornering. Other guys just say wild shit. Remember when like Greg Jackson used to put on accents to talk to guys? That was so weird. Anyway, let's get into the next fight. Well, let me check something. Okay. We have a strawweight bout next. Former champion Carla Esparza faces off against Tisha Pennington, formerly Tisha Torres, for those that aren't aware. So let's begin with Esparza. The former champion has the reputation of a pure wrestler, but she's an underrated transition fighter. Small for the weight class, Esparza strangely likes to operate from a long distance, but she makes sense out of it. If fighters close the distance with big strikes, she will shoot to their hips. If they kick, she's decent at catching kicks. If forced to lead, Esparza won't wait. She keeps active with feints and attacks with volume with her blitzes. Her striking can be a bit hit and miss. At times, Esparza really finds the target, especially with her right hand, can angle out after her combos, or track opponents with leg kicks. Other times, she flurries in straight lines without much structure. Her wrestling is obviously her A game. Other than reactive takedowns, there is surprisingly not a lot of setups to Esparza's shots in open space, mostly relying on her quickness and her chain wrestling to get fights to the mat. Double legs, a variety of finishes from the single leg and knee taps all play into one another. And even from the clinch, Esparza is a threat despite her lack of size. From top position, Esparza has a solid base and is a good passer that incorporates posturing up and solid ground and pound to better her positions. She can struggle to get damage going from more controlling positions, and she has been reversed during transitions numerous times with her size playing against her. Esparza is past her prime, but she remains a well-conditioned and durable athlete. But she has had trouble being as consistent with her athletic base game now that she's a bit slower to react. And her low damage style can also come back to bite her in grueling fights. Against her, we have Tisha Pennington, a Taekwondo-based fighter. The now veteran Pennington is still a high-energy volume striker. Tisha usually likes to attack with blitzes, putting her head down, and attacks with punch flurries, sometimes going to the body for variety. A dexterous kicker, she's the owner of a solid leg sidekick that she can use to control range, but she has been more reserved with it later into her career, especially against wrestlers. Up in close, she's also active with hooks, and while she's not a pocket boxer, her accuracy and defense has developed over the years. She can also crash into the clinch, and there she maintains the same output with hooks and uppercuts and has a good eyes for knees during breaks. Despite her age and mileage, Torres is still a physical specimen. Torres, Pennington, excuse me, for the division, and that helps her with her takedown defense, being physically strong with a low center of gravity in the clinch and an agile scrambler who doesn't accept any position on the mat. TJ is also a serviceable offensive wrestler. She can grind attempts against the fence and can surprise with reactive trips from the body lock. Pennington is well conditioned and tough and has never been finished in her career, but at the same time she lacks finishing ability with only 2 finishes in 13 wins. Her high volume, messy exchanges style can make it difficult to judges to actually tell who's winning the fight. So we've seen a lot of split decisions there. This is actually a rematch. Their first fight happened in the Ultimate Fighter. It was a 2-round affair in which Esparza had to fight for a lot of takedowns and got little success with them, but was able to control the pace of the fight and land some transitional strikes. Since then, I feel like Esparza has lost a more of a step physically with the passing of time, which could give Pennington, the naturally bigger and stronger fighter, a better edge in defending takedowns this time around. Pennington is also a lot more experienced in fighting, but also in grappling during pro fights since that time. And even though she's coming off a loss against a wrestler, I think she deserved the nod in that fight against Richie. Pennington avenges her loss with a decision victory against the former champion. Oh, they're that kind of corner, right? Those guys that are, oh, you're clearly 2 rounds up. Like, I never understand that. I mean, there's always the argument, right? That, oh, the corners know their fighters and that kind of stuff. But, like, sometimes you need to tell a fighter that they need a finish. If you're going to send your fighter for a 3rd round and you don't think they have any chance to win there, you should actually throw the towel. I mean, I understand why corners don't do that, because it is a terrible look and we have a very toxic environment here in MMA. I know Dana White would be like fucking pissed if a guy that was losing like 2-10-9 rounds threw out the towel, but like if you're not throwing, I mean, if you're not sending your fighter out to win, like what's the fucking point, right? And I feel like a lot of fighters are like content to lose a decision. I never understood. I don't understand that mentality, right? I mean, obviously it's like self-preservation, but and I understand like the risk of losing a fight are not as trivial as losing a game of football. Like you can get concussed, so it is a scary proposition, but still, I feel like a lot of fighters are like surprisingly okay with losing a decision when they are 2 rounds down. Okay, let's get into the next one. Let me get here. What's the next fight anyway? Oh, it's this one. I actually like this one, to be honest. I actually like this fight. A lightweight bout between Alexander Hernandez and Austin Hubbard is up next. Hernandez, an athletic fighter that likes to fight in bursts, Hernandez often moves on the outside, exploding with moments of aggression, but he's better when allowed to operate at neutral, given time to feint and reset to set up his attacks. A switch hitter, Hernandez is the owner of a sharp 1-2 and kicks all 3 levels from both stances. He's at his best when he starts to flow on the feet, maintaining initiative and using his footwork tricks and output to remain safe. Defense is largely hit and miss, while at times Hernandez can angle out after combos and can draw attacks to pull away and counter. His head movement can be lacking and he can retreat in straight lines if attacked with longer combinations. A decent wrestler and grappler, Hernandez is aided by his physical strength and athleticism to attack takedowns and scramble effectively. But he's a solid technical grappler when the fight hits the mat, having good passes from top and good submission defense from the bottom, plus big ground and pound. Hernandez has great attributes, and other than some lack of depth to some areas of his game, his biggest problem remains his mental side. When he's confident and has his head over his shoulder, Hernandez is an offensive threat with exploitable defensive flaws. When he doubts himself, he's quick to lose the grip of the fight, and his defensive flaw gets exposed easily with lower output. His cardio also seems dependable on his confidence. Against him, we have Austin Hubbard, a lanky, well-rounded switch stance striker. Hubbard likes to pot shot with long strikes at distance to set up his power shots, be it big kicks from long range or sneaky uppercuts and hooks from up close. Hubbard attacks with a lot of variety and pairs his strikes well, not only using similar start motions to play change-ups, but he's also good at punctuating boxing combination with kicks and punching off his kicks, and he attacks all three levels. Of note are his knees that he can throw sneakily at range to the body and head. Hubbard is at his best moving forwards too. When he gets going, he gets his foe reacting to his feints and variety, and his defense is also better when he's on the front foot, as he can move his head side to side, standing heavy on his front foot, and can use an elbow shield, his footwork, or pull back to remain safe. While Hubbard does move his head, his chin can stay up during exchanges, and his defense is limited when put on the back foot. A solid transition fighter, Hubbard is not afraid to mix in takedown attempts at any time, and he has good timing and wrestling technique, being able to finish doubles and singles and shade them together in open space. But his finishes can lack the authority to establish solid control. A solid fundamental grappler, Hubbard has good get-ups from bottom and has a solid base from top position. Other than his flaws, when pushed back, Hubbard can fail to put a stamp on close fight because he's not a stellar athlete, neither a big hitter. His cardio is very good and has helped him fight the upper hand in close fights though. This fight presents a matchup with two fighters with some clear similarities and differences. Both guys are clearly better moving forwards and having a firm grip on the initiative. Not only are both offensively dangerous in their own way, but also both can mask their defensive liabilities when making their opponents react. Both are also well-rounded and can mix in the grappling if needed, but wrestling is probably a bit of a weak link between their striking and grappling on the mat. When it comes to differences, Hernandez is the more dynamic athlete, likely to have both a strength and a speed advantage, while Hubbard will be longer, has more layers to his offense, and is more likely to use transitions to change the pace of the fight. I was expecting to pick Hubbard here. He will have the cardio advantage, and Hernandez is taking this in somewhat of a short notice, but despite Hubbard's cardio and pace, he has failed to put on a drowning pace on many fights. Hernandez will need to show in at least decent headspace to win this, but I think he's the fighter more likely to produce big eye-catching moments, and I feel like Hubbard's pace will give him space enough to not question himself, but also work at a good rate of his own. Taking a bit of a risk, but I'm picking Hernandez to win a decision. Dan Tom says, I love OSP cornerman JDK. Eric Turner. He's fucking crazy. I need to catch me some Eric Turner clips, man. I'm not familiar with this, and I've seen like a million OSP fights. I need draw energy from the ground. I need to see that, man. I need to see that. I'll try to get some clips about that. That sounds so fucking crazy. Oh, we have the duelist. We have the duelist next. Everyone gets excited about Ihor Poitiera. The enemy of the people. Where is that fight in my notes? Okay, here we are. we have a middleweight fight. It is the duelist Ihor Poitiera against Cesar Almeida. Let's begin with Poitiera. A southpaw kickboxer, the duelist likes to poke at range with his rear leg, mostly as a roundhouse to the legs and body, effective at pairing his rear hand with his rear kicks. Poitiera sneaks a good amount of straight lefts from open range, and he will occasionally change levels to the body with it. He feints, jabs, and fight hands looking to set up his feet to fire combinations with his hands. While his mechanics can be janky, his combinations are well put together, and he likes to weave or pull back after 2 or 3 shots to come back with counters, and he has power in both hands. Even though Poitiera proactively moves his head after his own strikes and seems to have good eyes to see shots coming when he has the initiative, his head can be lacking at range. His head movement, excuse me. But this is somewhat alleviated by him managing distance well and him parrying and fighting hands actively. He will also level change for clinches and single legs and uses both to disrupt the timing of his opponents, control the pace of the fight, and find strikes in transitions, like uppercut off his level changes and big blows during clinch breaks. Not much of his grappling has been seen in the UFC, but his ground and pound has looked heavy and accurate. Cardio and shin seem to have translated well, dropping from light heavyweight to middleweight. His biggest flaw is his lackluster defense at range, especially early in fights. Against him we have Cesar Almeida, a former high-level pro kickboxer. Almeida is a devastating striker that mostly operates behind a stiff jab that often goes to the body and a hard calf kick, similar to those of his former kickboxing rival and main eventer Alex Pereira. His right hand is quick and powerful, both as a straight and as a hook, and his left hook glues his combinations together and also has fight-ending power both to the head and body. Almeida likes to hide behind his lead shoulder after throwing his left hand and look to shoulder roll, or actively angles out after his combos, but his defense seems to take a hit when he is concerned with defending takedowns, and his head can remain on the center line, exposing him to straight shots. As someone who has to deal with fighter constantly trying to clinch with him and take him down, Almeida is skilled beyond his experience. He fight grips well inside the clinch and looks to angle to get back to the center of the cage, and against insistent wrestlers that don't offer an easy way out, he's patient and fills any gap with sneakily powerful shots in the form of punches, elbows, and knees to whatever target available. His takedown defense is surprisingly solid, but not impeccable, as he can be surprised when he's squaring his hips in open space and has been tripped during prolonged clinch exchanges. His get-up game seems to be on point so far though, as he's quick to pressure to the head and blade his hips, and is an adept wall worker, and if denied easy escapes, he's patient and will look for spots to reverse. From top position, he's also surprisingly solid with good posture and base, and heavy damaging ground and pound with good tactics. Very tough, and the conditioning seems to hold up at least passably, even in grappling heavy fights. His apparent flaws so far are his defense when worrying about takedowns, and takedowning themselves during transitions. His get-up game can be lagging when he doesn't have the cage to wall walk. Almeida once again faces a southpaw striker after losing a decision to Kopylov, who not only wrestled him effectively but also landed damaging shots on the feet, especially early. Poitiera doesn't have the cleanness to his mechanics that Kopylov does, and he doesn't have the luxury of training in Dagestan with a bunch of good wrestlers, right? But he's the owner of a quick straight left, is longer, and might be a more natural transition and fighter, even if he might not be as good of a wrestler as Kopylov. Are we getting a repeat of the previous fight? Poitiera hasn't shown much of his grappling in the UFC, but he's the owner of more than a few rear naked choke victories on the regional circuit. And even if he stays on the feet, his attacks down the center line and his smart use of takedown attempts and clinches might give him the edge there. That being said, Almeida can probably deal fine with the kicking at range, and I would expect him to have a considerable advantage inside the pocket. Might even be the more damaging fighter inside the clinch too. It is a real close one, but I'm picking the Brazilian to get a knockout on round 2. Oh, that's fantastic. I did not record that segment. Jesus fucking Christ. Fuck it, I'll record it again. I have to record it again. I'm so sorry, but I need to record the parts for the recorded version. Oh no, I paused it at one moment. I don't know what happened, man. Anyway, I'll record since. Okay, I record from the Almeida because I recorded earlier. Fucking hell, man, that's a mess. I'm sorry. Against him, Against him, we have Cesar Almeida, a former high-level pro kickboxer. Almeida is a devastating striker that mostly operates behind a stiff jab that often goes to the body and hard calf kicks, similar to those of his former kickboxing rival Alex Pereira. His right hand is quick and powerful both as a straight and as a hook, and his left hook glues his combinations together and also has fight-ending power both to the head and body. Almeida likes to hide behind his lead shoulder after throwing his left hand, and looks to shoulder roll or actively angles out after his combos, but his defense seems to take a hit when he's concerned with defending takedowns, and his head can remain on the center line, exposing him to stray shots. As someone who has to deal with fighters constantly trying to clinch with him and take him down, Almeida is skilled beyond his experience. He fight grips well inside the clinch and looks to angle to get back to the center of the cage. And against insistent wrestlers that don't often offer an easy way out, his patience and fills any gap with sneaky powerful shots in the form of punches, elbows, and knees to whatever target available. His takedown defense is surprisingly solid, but not impeccable, as he can be surprised when squaring his hips in open space and has been tripped during prolonged clinch exchanges. His get-up game seems to be on point so far though, as he is quick to pressure the head and blaze his hips, and is an adept wall walker. And if denied easy escapes, he is patient and will look for a spot to reverse. From top position, he's also surprisingly solid with good posture and base and heavy damaging ground and pound with good tactics. Very tough, and the conditioning seems to hold up at least passably even in grappling heavy fights. His apparent flaws so far are his defense when worrying about takedowns and takedowns in themselves during transitions. His get-up game can be lacking when he doesn't have the cage to wall walk. Almeida once again faces a southpaw striker after losing a decision to Kopilov, who not only wrestled him effectively but also landed damaging shots on the feet, especially early. Poitiera doesn't have the cleanness to his mechanics that Kopilov does. He doesn't have the luxury of training in Dagestan with a bunch of wrestlers, but he is the owner of a quick straight left and is longer and might be a more natural transitional fighter, even if he's not as good of a wrestler. Are we getting a repeat of the previous fight? Poitiera hasn't shown much of his grappling in the UFC, but he's the owner of more than a few rear naked choke victories on the regional circuit. And even if he stayed on the feet, his attacks down the center line and his smart use of takedown attempts and clinches might give him the edge here. That being said, Almeida can probably deal fine with the kicking at range, and I would expect him to have a considerably advantage inside the pocket. Maybe even being the more damaging fighter inside the clinch. It is a real close one, but I'm picking the Brazilian to get a knockout in round number 2. Okay. Speed walks so Jared Kennedy could run. Oh man, there's a lot of weirdos in MMA. Those aren't the only two. That's for sure. We have weirdos everywhere. Man, I like the Poitiera versus Cesar Almeida fight. It's kind of weird matchmaking because it's so similar to the Kopilov Almeida fight, but it's kind of cool. Okay, this next one is actually solid, I guess. We have a strawweight bout between Marina Rodriguez and Jasmine Lucindo. Let's begin with Marina Rodriguez. A long kickboxer, Rodriguez is at her best when she's aggressive, marching people down with her punishing leg kicks and snap kicks to the body, finding spots to attack with long-range punching combinations, throwing away jabs to line up her straight right, sneak a right hook, and then put a long left hook behind it. In her last fight against Andrade, she kicked a lot less and moved on the outside behind long punches to decent success, but the lapses of conceding the initiative expose her limited defense at range. While Marina has decent footwork and is able to circle to both sides and hide behind her shoulders well, her chin tends to stay up in the air and she can really defend against combinations if she doesn't have distance and space. While Marina is not a great wrestler or grappler, the clinch is her best phase. In there, she uses her long frame to attack from wrist control and collar ties to land brutal knees and elbows, and she has a great understanding of the change-ups available when making an opponent push and pull. Takedown defense has been a problem in the past, but she can attack rips early and circle in open space when she has the initiative, and is effective at using the whizzer and pivoting to defend against the fence. On the ground, Marina is an okay grappler with good patience and very good submission defense, never being submitted in her career, despite facing fighters like Esparza, Mackenzie Dern, and Vieira Jandiroba. Get-ups have been a problem for her, and while she can scramble, she can struggle with conservative top control. It's hard to tell where Marina is right now in her career. You would expect her physicality to be past its prime at 37 years old, but she has good condition and strong steel. Her mental game is also a question mark, as she has looked shaky against fellow punchers in Andrade and Lemos. Against her we have Lucindo, stocky and powerful. What Lucindo lacks in subtlety, she makes up for with power and some tricks up her sleeve. Already 21 fights into her pro career despite only being 22 years old, Lucindo throws basically everything at full power, but her experience has granted her pretty good timing both with her right hand and closing exchanges with her wide left hook. Lucindo mostly likes to walk forward and throw counters at the very first sign of a punch coming her way, but she will use feints and powerful kicks if her opponent is not giving her much to work with. She can punch off kicks well and has a tricky spinning back fist to add variety. She will move side to side when throwing her wide hooks, but defense is not a strong point and relies in her condition of being the tougher and bigger puncher during exchanges a lot. Not only a striker, Lucindo is very physically strong inside the clinch, and while not terribly active there, she will take foes down from the body lock if allowed. From top, she either looks to pass with heavy pressure or to bust her up conceding position to line big ground and pound. From bottom, we haven't seen much as of late, but it seems like she's content to stall and remain safe. Despite her style, her cardio is a strong point, and so is her toughness. Her lack of adaptability and nuance are her biggest weaknesses. It will be interesting to see how Marina approaches this one, if she decides to play a similar game to the one she played against Andrade, considering the similarities of the matchup, or if she will try to be aggressive here. I think both can work, as we haven't seen Lucindo deal with a long foe who tried to stalk her at the end of their reach. And she does look to have some limitations at very long range because of her loopy punches and bare bones kicking game. But she also has some useful tools like switching entries and a natural counter ability. If Marina decides to push forward and use her clinch, things could get heated. She would be giving herself the best chance at inflicting damage and wear on Lucindo, but at the same time she would be exposing herself to the counter punches and takedowns of the younger fighter. There's a 15-year gap in age between these two fighters, and I think we have some proof that this archetype that doesn't bring the best out of Marina. Even if she could have won against Andrade with different judges, in my opinion. I usually go with the more proven fighter, but I'll pick Lucindo because of both her attributes and tools on top of the matchup. Lucindo wins by decision. That one is a solid fight, I feel. I like that one. It's not... I mean, I'm not sure, man. I hope Marina brings it in this fight because when Marina is aggressive, she's very fun to watch. But I found her approach against Jessica Andrade very frustrating, to be honest. I feel like she should have used the clinch a lot more, but I guess she was scared about like Andrade because she's so short, having access to her hips. But I feel like a solid collar tie is very good at neutralizing that kind of entries, to be honest. I don't know. It was weird. Oh, I hate this fight, the next one. I hate this one, to be honest. Hate it. Okay, let's get into that one. Is this main card? No. The last fight of the prelims matches up Stephen Wonderboy Thompson against Joaquin Buckley in a welterweight fight. So Wonderboy, the Karate Kid, Thompson likes to establish a long distance with his bladed boxing stance. He usually likes to mirror his opponents to fight from open stances. From there, he maintains distance using linear strikes, jabs, rear strikes, and a side kick, especially from orthodox. Lightning quick roundhouse kicks do the bulk of the damage for him. His constant fading, output, and variety make him hard to predict and ensure he will land with regularity. His footwork in open space is clean, especially when he's leading, as he makes sure to take angles after attacks and has good shot selection based on his positioning. And when he finds himself out of position, he has ways of bailing, especially using tricky side kicks and back kicks that few fighters know how to deal with. On the back foot, things can get more sketchy, as his mechanics don't really allow him to make small steps and he favors sidestepping over pivoting. Good counters when he makes fighters close the long distance that he forces, especially with stiff rear straights from both stances. Despite the inherent flaws of his style, Wonderboy has been a lot harder to leg kick than you would expect, and even when leg kicked, has shown a great ability to absorb leg kicks and punish them with darting straight punches. Head movement when he blitzes and when forced back are his biggest weaknesses, and as of late, his former very strong takedown defense has taken a hit. Despite his age, Wonderboy remains durable and particularly well conditioned, and has no trouble maintaining his high energy demanding style for a whole fight. The years aren't in vain though, and Wonderboy has lost a bit of speed and potency that allow him bigger margins during his prime. Against him we have Buckley, a southpaw striker. The athletic Buckley moves in and out in range, fading behind his bouncy footwork, switching stances looking for openings to close the distance. Buckley will attack with flurries of punches after sleeping or weaving at range, and he can attack the body and head with hooks effectively, but his defense during exits can be sketchy. Buckley usually likes to entry on the counter, slipping an initial shot to close the distance after that, especially against longer opponents, and despite feigning both ways, he heavily favors sleeping to his left. Inside the pocket, Buckley is not a layered pocket boxer, but he will counter big with both hands and will remember to weave behind his high guard from time to time. He's also a powerful and dynamic kicker, but there's not a lot in the way of setup or connection to his boxing game there. But it's something his opponents need to be aware of, as he has a few kick KOs in his record, including the all-timer finish of Impact Sanganai. An outstanding athlete, Buckley is not afraid to use his physical strength and speed to shoot takedowns, and his blast double doesn't need much of a good entry to be complete if he gets to the hips. He can also drive opponents to the fence and grind from the bodylock. From top position, he has good damaging ground and pound, but can fail to control active scramblers while he's looking to land shots. Buckley has a lot of good attributes, including durability and conditioning, but a lot of the time his approach seems kinda aimless, and while he will actively look to do the things that are successful, he often doesn't fight a fight that allows him to get there with regularity, ending up relying on big moments to win rounds or seal the deal. Buckley comes with all the momentum here and will have an 11-year youth advantage against Wonderboy. Buckley is also always capable of creating big moments, seemingly out of nothing, be it a key takedown or landing a huge strike on the feet to change the course of a fight. With all that being said, Wonderboy is comfortable poking at counterpunchers and moving well on the outside, and while his potency has taken a hit, he's still an accurate and damaging striker with good output. I have a terrible feeling that Buckley finds something big and wins anyway, but I can't come to pick him, as I think Wonderboy is not only better overall, even at his age, but also can deal with a number of different approaches and skill for skill. It's a bad matchup for New Mensa, so I'm picking Wonderboy by decision. I hate this fight. I really feel like Buckley is going to land something very stupid and he's going to kill Wonderboy. That's what I'm feeling here, and I'm not even that big of a Wonderboy fan, Like I've rooted against Wonderboy many times as a fan watching fights through my career, but Buckley, man, I hate Buckley's style. Like he has all the attributes and he fights in such a stupid way. Not to hate, but I feel like I feel like Buckley could be a lot better, and a lot of it is just changing the selection of tactics. I don't feel like Buckley's tactics make much sense most of the time, and the same with the strategy. Like I understand what he's trying to do at times. Like for example, in his last fight against Rusiboyev, Buckley was like clearly wanted Rusiboyev to lead so he could counter or get takedowns, but he really didn't have like any tools to force Rusiboyev into giving him the leads that he wanted. It was such a passive like counter game that really led to a very like messy shitty fight. If there's one thing Buckley can do, it's cover distance from one end to the cage to the other in a completely straight line really quickly. He's so fucking quick and explosive, man. That's so dangerous. I feel like Wonderboy should have a field day, just like circling outside. But then again, like Wonderboy's getting old. He circles wide. Like man, maybe Buckley can even land like a wheel kick or a heel kick, a spinning heel kick. You know, when when Wonderboy is like circling on the outside, that would fucking suck. I mean, it would be like a great fucking knockout, right? But it would be so dumb. But then again, if Wonderboy gets caught like circling wide, that's on him, right? He should know better, but that's what Wonderboy does. He has a lot of tools uh, to deal with his flaws, but he still has very clear flaws. I'm not expecting Buckley to easily wrestle Wonderboy. That would be like the worst possible outcome, right? Nothing would suck more than that. That's like that would be the worst. I'll check some things quickly and we'll get into the. Anyway, what's the next fight? This one also sucks. Come on, dude. What is this pay per view? Not a fan of this fight. I mean, yeah, no, this one is not going to be good. I can feel it in my bones. The opener of the main card is a middleweight bout between Roman Dolidze and Kevin Holland. So Dolidze, a submission specialist moving up from what? I'll begin that one again because I wrote some things that didn't make sense in my notes. It seems. Okay. The opener of the main card is a middleweight bout between Roman Dolidze and Kevin Holland. So Dolidze, a submission specialist, Dolidze is raw but powerful on the feet. There's not much in the way of defense other than distance, some minimal head movement, mostly in the form of leanbacks and throwing back hard. Dolidze doesn't really like fighters moving around him as he lacks tools to track people around the cage, and he's better suited for neutral space engages. He has a decent level change into double X, which he can usually finish out in open space or use to drive people against the cage where he's not a technical wrestler but strong. In case of not getting takedowns, he's dangerous inside the clinch and can time dangerous knees and elbows, but usually commits to the body lock looking to muscle takedowns. Despite his grappling chops, the lead is not precisely great at establishing control from takedowns, but once settled in top position, he has heavy ground and pound and is good at passing and taking the back from mount. The most interesting part of his game is his scrambling, especially from his back, relentlessly creating space with elbows, forces people into making rush decisions. He has tons of options from there. He usually goes from change-up between the armbar triangle series and leg attacks like X or K guard. He's good at finishing heel hooks and knee bars and can scramble to top position from his submission attempts. Dolidze is tough, dangerous, and has a good eye for openings, but he can lack resources to solve problems if stuck in single areas, especially at range. Against him, we have Holland, a very long striker. Holland is now back at 185, where he usually enjoys less of a reach and height advantage than down at 170. He usually establishes a range behind a variety of kicks and straight punches. Despite his long frame and long range tool, he's not shy about closing the distance, but he can be vulnerable when he closes the distance without moving his head. He puts long combinations together inside the pocket and has surprisingly decent defense inside there, moving his head and guarding with his forearms and shoulders, being strangely harder to hit on the inside than when moving forwards or even at open space. Talking about moving forwards, when he does so, he usually ends up in the clinch, as he often breaks his stance with shifts, especially when throwing his rear hand. That's not entirely bad though, as he's good at framing and finding strikes in the clinch and breaks, possessing nasty elbows, knees, and loopy punches that are complemented by his frame. He's also good at using his length to defend takedowns, especially with the whizzer, but can be taken down by good entries in open space. A constant scrambler and very annoying to deal with from the bottom, Holland can be controllable if put flat on his back. Holland is dangerous from the front headlock, where he can put his long arms to good use, with the dart stroke being a threat of note. Well conditioned and very tough, Holland has mostly been beat by being put on his back, by people matching his length, especially if they kick, or when opponents consistently attack his body and legs. Holland has his second fight back at 185, while Dolidze took a little trip to 205 on short notice to beat Anthony Smith in his last one. While his aggression and speed up a weight class allowed Dolidze to match the long Anthony Smith in his last bout, Holland is a quicker and more active threat on the feet. Dolidze is a long and aggressive, and Holland defense at range has been exposed by fighters who can match his length with different tools. We saw the pressure of Michal Oleksiejczuk allow him to get to Holland in his last fight before being submitted by an armbar. Dolidze doesn't have the pressure in footwork and aggressive southpaw looks of the Polish, but he does have power and is not afraid of being hit while looking for his own shots. And we saw how that led him to success at times against fighters like Vettori and even, if more limitedly, Imavov. Dolidze might also have a strange advantage in the clinch, and he might use it to find big strikes during transitions or convert into takedowns. Dolidze is also one of the fighters at 185 who has a pure grappling advantage against Holland, but as we have seen before, he's not a game over from top position, being the rare MMA fighter that is better from the bottom creating transitions than controlling from top. I think it will be the speed, output, and superior craft in the striking that will carry Holland in this fight. Both guys are very tough, so I expect this one to see the final horn. Holland wins a decision, that's my pick. I don't think the Holland versus Dolidze is going to be good, man. It's going to be so fucking ugly. Hopefully someone gets hurt. I mean, no, not because I hate them, just because if they don't hurt each other, like if someone doesn't get rocked, it's not going to be a very exciting fight. I can feel it, man. Just a lot of ugly exchanges. Hopefully, like Holland gets going and forces Dolidze to be very aggressive. That could maybe turn this into a good fight. But yeah, let's get into the next one. Where do I have my notes here? Okay. We have a featured bantamweight fight next. Kyla Harrison fights Ketlin Vieira. Let's begin with Harrison. The Olympic judo gold medalist made a successful 135 pounds debut, dominating Holly Holm on the ground. Training under American top team, Harrison has put together a functional, well-rounded game. A southpaw, Harrison's stance is heavy on the front foot as she looks to jab and move her head, feinting level changes to throw a big overhand left that she uses to catch tie-ups. She can throw her left straight with decent pop and play that changeup, and she's a powerful, if a bit stiff kicker with her rear leg as well. Harrison has pop to all of her strikes and she managed distance well, and while her footwork can be awkward at times, she had decent positioning and knows how both to pressure and move on the outside. Her defense is nothing great. She knows how to move her head and looks to block actively with her forearms inside the pocket, but her vision can be lacking and can be tricked by feints and long combinations. But her ability to tie up obviously offers her a safety blanket. As a judoka, obviously her clinch game is her best phase, but she's not afraid to shoot takedowns and is actually quite a good wrestler from open space with a quick level change into the double leg, and she's proficient at turning the corner for the finish. Inside the clinch, not only is she tremendously strong, but can find twists and throws from a variety of positions, and she's excellent at countering takedown attempts from her opponents to achieve top position. From top, she's very heavy and will look to pass and control limbs, lacing the legs and using wrist control to flatten up opponents and attack with big ground and pound. Previously a PFL fighter, now under the UFC, it seems like Harrison has been highly benefited by the allowance of elbows, as her already big ground and pound is better suited to that weapon. While her fundamental grappling is solid, she has been vulnerable to escapes and reversals during her passes and transitions, especially when she hasn't reached her most dominant positions yet. The few times she has been on the bottom, she has worked well to get back to her feet, creating space at the hips and using the classic ATT wall walk. Conditioned, durable, and strong, Harrison has a lot of good attributes, but she still is an awkward striker with suspect defense and can rely on transitions to dictate how a fight plays. Against her, we have Vieira, a Nova União product. Vieira is big for the weight class and well versed in all areas of MMA. A bit awkward in her movement, Vieira is a well-schooled striker who fights behind long punches. She has an accurate jab and a heavy right hand. Her left hook is one of her best punches. It's on the long side, but she can use it to check incoming opponents pivoting, or she can extend her combinations using it to punctuate. Vieira is also a solid kicker, having a preference for the legs as targets. Her head movement can be lacking, but she manages distance well, timing her leanbacks, and is almost always keeping her right hand up during exchanges and uses her lead hand to parry well. Judo and BJJ black belt, Vieira is a good grappler on the feet and in open space, inside the clinch and on the mat. She can lack setups to her takedowns and she tends to fall at the hip. Her level change is still decent and she has a good single leg with a variety of finishes. Strong in the clinch, Vieira can be lacking in activity when it comes to strikes, but she's hard to take down and she attacks with wizard kicks, foot sweeps, hip tosses, and trips. Takedown defense is solid at range and inside the clinch, but she can get reverse going for bad attempts. From top, she's solid with good fundamentals and passing, and while she can land solid ground and pound, she can be inactive. From bottom, Vieira is resourceful with guard attacks and a good ability to roll for leg locks to create movement. Vieira is a very solid and skilled fighter, but her lack of activity and lack of second gear remain her biggest flaw with her inconsistency fight to fight. A very intriguing fight in which the winner will probably get a title shot, especially if the winner is Harrison. This is a way more intriguing fight than it might seem to most. Vieira has the well-roundedness and toughness to mimic some of the success of her fellow Brazilian Larissa Pacheco in her victory against Harrison. Vieira is a judo black belt, obviously not in the level of Harrison, but she might be better versed than most to deal with the clinch exchanges. On top of that, Vieira is also the most comfortable and layered striker if it comes to that. For Vieira, the biggest problem are her output and her inconsistency. If she brings her A game, I'd give her an excellent shot at derailing Harrison with a focused game plan, but I just can't trust her to have the activity and decision making on fight night to pick her. So the final pick is Harrison by decision. Fan Lover says Rountree is going out cold brutally. Likely, very likely. Bro, are you from Spain? I'm actually from Chile, but I do speak Espanol, so That's why the accent sounds like that, if you're wondering. Happy to have you over here, by the way. Thank you for listening. Hopefully someone gets hurt. Yeah, that's a quote on me on an MMA fight. How weird of me, right? To hope that someone gets hurt. We have the goat in the next one. We have the absolute goat on the next fight. Is he going to win? Who knows? But let's get right into that. We stay at bantamweight, but for guys this time because we have Jose Aldo Jr. versus Mario Bautista. Let's begin with Aldo. The King of Rio is way past his best days, and even with the decline, he still remains a formidable fighter. Now 38 years old, the 45 veteran has given us some of the best late career performances of all time, but also some head-scratching, sketchy moments, be it in the form of inactivity or big lapses in reaction time. At his best, Aldo is one of the best boxers the sport has seen. Maybe not a super nuanced combination boxer, Aldo possesses a brilliant jab to control exchanges, and his understanding of change-ups and big power allow him to put very effective short combinations together. When I say one of the best boxers, I also talk about defense with masterful footwork. Aldo will pivot and deny exchanges in the blink of an eye, and he will mix proactive head movement, footwork, static and active guarding to some of the best displays of defense mixed martial art has been graced with. Leg kicking phenom himself during his prime. Later in his career, his kicking output saw a considerable drop off, but Aldo turned instead into one of the best kick shakers in the sport. And the defensive praise doesn't stop there, as his legendary takedown defense is such for a reason. Excellent at feeding the single leg to limp leg out. Aldo's footwork and grip fighting may take him down a tall order, and on top of that, he's also an athletic freak with excellent hips that can change directions impressively quick. I ask again, what's left of the best of Aldo? That's the hard part to know. We've seen late career Aldo fail to defend takedowns, react badly to strikes, and just go long stretches without throwing much. But we also seen late career Aldo impeccably defend the leg kicks of Pedro Munoz while boxing him up, outkick Peter Yan for a round after being hurt, defend every takedown from Merab, the current champion, and comfortably win a range kickboxing fight against Martinez in his last fight. I think the one thing that has had the biggest impact in late career Aldo is his reaction time, which means he relies a lot on having the initiative to correctly predict his opponent instead of reacting in the very last second. That and his confidence in his cardio, which probably explains the frustrating low volume at times. Against him we have Bautista, an aggressive, well-rounded, long and strong fighter. Bautista looks to fight either at long range or close the distance all the way to the clinch. From long distance, he throws hard leg kicks and jabs that allow him to set up bigger strikes from both sides to all levels. Solid defense, especially when pressuring. Of note is his ability to pivot off sleeves. His tall stance has been exploitable by overhands and wide hooks over the top in the past though, and can expose his body as well. Bautista can close the distance behind combinations and dangerous flying knee or shooting for takedowns, converting into clinches if he's not successful with the initial shot. Strong in the clinch, Bautista is very good at fighting elbows and knees from a variety of grips, and he's also content to control opponents against the fence to wear on them and win minutes. He's reversible in there, but he's urgent about pummeling and pivoting to not spend too much time when he's the one with his back against the fence. An increasingly good wrestler, he's strong, dragging people down from body locks or swimming to the back in the clinch. Big ground and pound if he gets to top position with solid positioning. Bautista has a knack for finding the back during get-ups and is a good rear naked choke finisher. He can be vulnerable to takedowns and can lose scrambles when rushing takedown attempts, but he works hard to get back to his feet, and he has been hard to control. Bautista is a pace and transition-based fighter who can have lapses of defense in all areas, but he compensates with aggressiveness and an ability to compete everywhere the fight takes place. This fight is all about Bautista's pace to establish Bautista's ability to establish a pace in this fight and keep on Aldo's face. That's easier said than done, as Aldo has a number of tools to control the pace. He can check and defend kick at range like few can. His footwork makes him hard to pressure, and his counter ability and power makes most fighters think twice about being too reckless in the task of getting their output out there. For all the good qualities Bautista has, he's a big movement fighter. He circles wide on the outside and tends to announce his shots, which makes me think Aldo will be able to control the fight at the very least in the early going of the fight. Bautista needs to make it about transitions early. Jose Aldo can still defend and announce takedown perfectly fine, but he has been surprised, and Bautista needs to mix things up if he wants to surprise Aldo. The grappling is mostly to wear on Aldo, as Jose is a solid grappler and taking him down is nowhere near a game over situation. The fact that this fight is happening at altitude gives Bautista an even better chance at winning, but he needs to take chances and he needs to take them early. Barring an early finish either way, I think this is a fight that Aldo wins early and Bautista wins late. How soon the momentum shift happens, if it does happen, determines who takes the victory. I was expecting to pick Bautista and still think he has a good shot at winning, but I think Aldo can exploit enough of his game to at least win the first 2 rounds, so my final pick is Jose Aldo by decision. Caleb Miller says, Aldo entering his 3rd prime. We can only hope, man. We can only hope. I just love watching Jose Aldo fight, man. It's like not even like a particularly fan of him as a person. Like I never cared too much about him. But now that I appreciate technique more than ever, like watching Jose Aldo is such a delight. Like this late performance career these late career performances, excuse me, have been so great, man. Even the Merab fight that was like super boring had some like incredible Jose Aldo moments, right? It's just so good to watch. Let's get into the co-main. I actually don't hate the co-main. I mean, I don't like Juliana Peña, but it's a bit of an interesting fight, to be quite honest. After that, it's time for the co-main event. Raquel Rocky Pennington defends her UFC Bantamweight Championship against Juliana Peña. So, Pennington versus Peña is interesting because despite being for the title, I think both fighters are past their physical primes. Pennington comes into the fight as both the older fighter by 1 year and the more experienced fighter by 9 fights, but I feel like her game is better suited to deal with age and she doesn't look like she has fallen off much. Peña, on the other hand, started fighting in 2009 just like Rocky, but has been dealing with a number of injuries plus maternity, which has meant that she hasn't been as active. Peña is the more athletic of the two, despite not looking her best against Amanda physically, while you would expect Pennington to have a cardio advantage, right? Pennington has been getting taken down in quite a few of her last fights, but her grappling has remained solid, especially her submission defense. Her sole submission defeat came to Kat Zingano more than 10 years ago. And Peña isn't exactly punishing from top position, being more of a submission threat, especially with her rear naked choke. Both fighters have styles that can be grueling and draining, but while Peña can maybe be the bigger puncher when it comes to pure power and her wrestling can take a toll on people, Pennington has the more damaging style over time with her consistent bodywork, be it her combination punching or her knees inside the clinch. It is on Pennington to make adjustments as the fight goes on to not lose minutes on her back and try to inflict damage on Peña, particularly to the body. Peña's grappling is very solid, but she can be taken down and can be held down as well. And if Pennington puts a hold on her conditioning with her body attacks, we might see Rocky employing her own transition game into the later rounds. And I have to point out that Pennington has a nasty guillotine to punish bad shot takedowns, and Juliana is no stranger to shoot with no setup when she runs out of ideas. I feel like Peña's shallow game will allow Rocky to survive some tough wrestling heavy early rounds until the champion gets to spend more time on the feet being the better striker, and the clinch exchanges get and closer as damage piles on her favor. So my pick is Pennington by decision. And we just have the main event. And there's not much to say about the main event, right? I mean, I still have like some things written down, but this main event kind of crazy, right? I mean, it is. Is this main event like? Is this more undeserved than the Chito Vera title shot? At least Vera had like a win over O'Malley, right? But yeah, but on the other side, like Rountree is on a win streak, which Chito was not. He was on a one fight win streak. But yeah, this one is weird. But let's talk about it. And with that, we get to the main event. Poatan Alex Pereira defense against Khalil Rountree Jr. So this one can be seen as a bit of a joke. There is a clear more deserving contender in Ankalaev in the division. The UFC is giving Pereira the closest thing to a pure striker in the division, even more so than previous opponents like Jiri and Hill. So they are probably banking on their new hot star to get yet another electric knockout to finish the night on a high note. That being said, it is not entirely free for the champion. We've seen Pereira show moments of vulnerabilities on the feet, and Khalil is a puncher like few others in the division. Crazier things have happened. Other than a puncher's chance, what does Rountree have going for him? For once, Rountree has been hard to beat without grappling in the UFC himself. He's a fighter that show up with a few ideas into every fight, sometimes bordering on the gimmicky side, but he executes them well. And maybe he shows up with like the right gimmick to beat Pereira, right? Rountree is also like durable, condition. Obviously, Pereira can put anyone out with the right shot, but if Khalil plays his cards right, he might get some extra time inside the cage to put his own hands on the champion. Rountree is also a counter threat. And he already KO'd an accomplished kickboxer throwing a leg kick at him in Gouken Saki. As past his prime as he might have been at the time. The topic of the stance is interesting, as Khalil has flirted with so many different styles. Shout out to Miguel Class, because he preview. I mean, he tweeted about the different stances of Khalil Rountree in like a Mortal Kombat choose your fighter meme. Ahead of his own preview of this fight, so look out for that. Shout out Miguel. But yeah, if Rountree chooses like an upright light lead leg stance, like a Muay Thai stance, that would help him deal with the calf kicks of Pereira, but might open him up to the left hook. And if he goes like front foot heavy, he might be ready to counter the leg kicks with the overhand. But if he doesn't find the mark, he might find himself with a fried leg, and there's no coming back from that one a lot of the time. The other question is like, will Rountree shoot a takedown? It might not be a bad idea. While Pereira is not like absolutely free to wrestle, most of the time the consequences for trying aren't particularly dire. And while he's obviously capable of delivering big ground and pound from top position, if a failed shoot like ends up with Pereira in top position, the lack of experience from Pereira probably mean that he's like easy to style, I would imagine, from someone of the bottom. Or Pereira might not even take the chance on the first place. So maybe like you shoot a bad takedown and just go to your back. Maybe you're safe. Yeah, who knows, right? Rountree himself has been fighting a bunch of strikers into this run, and he has barely had to defend takedown himself. So who knows where his wrestling and grappling stand at the time. And maybe even like the cardio doesn't hold up if he wrestles a lot, right? That's always the danger when you're the striker. Even if DC like always borderlines on the cartoonish when, oh, he's not the grappler, so he's going to get tired. But I mean, it can be true, right? It's different types of cardio. That's actually right. But I think Rountree should probably at least put the idea on Pereira's head if he finds a good opportunity to shoot, as we have seen Pereira freeze when he has had to think about takedowns. I feel like this is closer than the showcase the UFC wants, but at the same time, I don't think it merits too much thoughts around it. Rountree has a decent shot of being the one landing the knockout, but I'm picking Pereira to retain. Pereira by knockout on the second round. That's the pick. And with that, we're done with the main event. Not very excited about this. Not very excited about this pay per view, to be honest. Like, this one is not a very good one. I've been excited for most of the last ones because they were like filled with action fights on the prelims, and then had like a few key moments here. But yeah, we'll talk about that on the closing thoughts. And that's the pay per view. Frankly, not one of the strongest the UFC has put this year. Maybe the weakest actually. So what fights do I like here? Um, Hernandez versus Austin Hubbard is like a very solid action fight. It's not very important for lightweight, but I expect that one at least to deliver on the action end of things. Poitiera versus Cesar Almeida, like all memes aside, I feel like the Duelist versus Almeida is a very solid fight. It's going to deliver on action. Uh, yeah, I mean, I'm expecting that one to be like exciting, and the winner might look for things in the division, like not that irrelevant. Marina Rodriguez versus Lucindo could be good, uh, but not like 100% because if Marina against fights like she did against Andrade, this might be like not that exciting. And then I'm actually excited about Kyla Harrison versus Caitlin Vieira. Like, not a super high chance that is like a barn burner, but it's very compelling. It's important for the division. Uh, it features like two skilled fighters with interesting games. They match up interestingly as well because Vieira is like a black belt in judo. Will be interesting to see if he can match Harrison in the clinch. Probably not, but who knows? And then she's a solid grappler. We have seen people get back to their feet from under Kyla Harrison. Vieira is a better striker, maybe even a bigger puncher than Harrison. Though all of that makes it very interesting. Jose Aldo versus Mario Bautista is going to be great. I mean, might be very sad if Aldo loses, but it's going to be like action packed, and it's going to have like good technique. It's going to have like some good stuff. Some good stuff is coming out of that one, right? I like Raquel Pennington. I think she's fun to watch most of the time. Uh, but I'm not sure if this fight against Peña is going to be the most exciting. I expect, unless Peña gets like easy takedowns, I expect a lot of clinching here. And Pennington can be damaging on the clinch, but I expect like Peña to be stronger than her. So I'm just expecting a lot of stalling in that fight, to be quite honest. And the main event is like, it's a joke, but at least it's going to be like an entertaining joke, right? It's going to be like who lands the big bomb. Maybe they have like a bit of a like a slow pace kickboxing fight, but it's going to be exciting because the stakes are very high, and like both guys have that fight ending a possibility in their hands at all moments. So it's interesting. Like, it's not a fantastic main event, but if this was like not for the title, but was like a fight on the undercard, I would be like, oh, that's a great fight. So it's kind of weird that it's happening for the title. Um, and low key, I kind of want Khalil to win, right? It would be kind of exciting. It would be hype if Rountree won. But yeah, I mean it's okay. Of a fight. Uh, yeah, I mean not a big fan of this pay per view. I've been defending most of the pay per views this year, as I have been saying. This one is not it, man. This one is not it. I'll be watching. I mean, I watch everything. You guys know I have to, but this one I'm not running to recommend to anyone. To be honest, it hopefully delivers with some good action fights. That's all I can expect. But yeah, that's the pay per view. That's my opinions. That's the breakdowns. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Remember that if you want to support me and the fight site as an ongoing project, you can head over to Patreon, and for only $5 you can get access to a very big library of exclusive content, and also access to our Discord server that is very cool. If you want to talk about fights with like-minded people, maybe you have a place there. Uh, because there's a lot of like fight nerds right there, right? Not that it's Caio Bohalio. I mean like actual like people that are nerds about fights. So yeah, again, thank you so much everyone for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. Hope you enjoyed the fights, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye. And that's it for the pay-per-view. Uh, I know this is super late, so not a lot of people tuned in, but I still enjoyed it. I appreciate everyone that tuned in for the podcast, especially JDK, my man. Thank you for tuning in, and your insight is always appreciated. Go follow my man JDK on Twitter. He's a very good follow. He's having a tweet about Jose Aldo like popping off right now, so that's exciting because it's a very good video. I I recommend that. So yeah, I mean, to everyone who like said hi or tune in to listen to the silly fight reviews, thank you so much, guys. I'll put the stamps. The recorded version be out soon. So yeah, thank you again. I'm very grateful to be able to do this. So I'll catch you guys on the next one. That's it for the podcast.